Okay, the Detroit Pistons have played 3 games so far. And in those 3 games, we have learned a lot about this team already. And I just kind of want to talk about what we've learned about this team offensively, what we've learned about this team defensively, and what we should expect from this Detroit Pistons team over the next 10 games, over the next couple months or first half of the season and for the rest of the year. I want to talk about where we're sitting. So let's get into that right now. First, we'll go offense because that's the easy one to talk about. That's the one everybody understands better. That's the one that the stats are geared towards. So let's talk about offense, but stay tuned because defense, there's some very interesting things to look at as well. And for the offense, I do want to bring up some statistics for us because there's some things that stand out. And what I'm seeing from this team is that the offense is actually further along than I thought it would be. I thought this would be a team that, quite frankly, would struggle to score 100 points every single night. They've been scoring. They have been scoring to the tune of 111.3 on average, to be honest. So that's what we're looking at. Bogdanovich is the leading scorer. I don't think that's a huge surprise with Cunningham, Bay, and Ivy trailing. And after that, there's a drop off. None of this is surprising. None of it's surprising, but I want to look at some of the more in depth stats to just look at where we're getting some surprise production out of these players on the offensive side. And where it comes to is the individual percentages. Bojan Bogdanovic is averaging 7.3 3-point attempts per game, and he's shooting it at a 50% clip. I don't expect that to stay at 50%. Now, I'm really encouraged by the fact that it's at 50 because that tells me sometimes you worry. Every time a guy is as old as Bogey, you start to wonder, how long is he going to be able to keep this up? So for him to be shooting that well in the beginning of the year is really exciting to say that, all right, that 3-point shot is still going to be there in that 40% range. I'm encouraged, especially by the last couple of games at Cade Cunningham's 3-point shot. He's at 35%. He's starting to hit the open one, and he's starting, it looks like, to favor the 3 at the top of the key. So that is pretty exciting. If he's comfortable with that 3, at the top of the key, there's a lot of pick and roll situations that he's coming off there. It seems to be where he really prefers to do his work from the top. So that's good. Here's a standout for Saddiq Bey. Can I just talk about Saddiq Bey for a second? So far, we're 3 games into the season, and Saddiq Bey has been exactly what Saddiq Bey has been, which is an extremely streaky player. His defense is always okay, but he's been extremely streaky with his shooting. He was hot game 2. He played well. He was knocking down buckets. That's about it. And he barely shot in the first game, and then in the last game was not playing as well, but not terrible. I want Saddiq Bey to look at Bogdanovich and be like, that's what I want to emulate. I want to be that model of consistency for sure. Here's a number that just shocks me. On 3.7 3-point attempts so far this year, Jaden Ivey's shooting at 45.5%. I don't expect this to stay. He is missing. When he misses, he misses. And when he makes it, it looks pure, but the shooting form just has a little bit left to be desired. But what he's already showing is exactly what we saw in college. If he's wide open, he is a knockdown shooter. That's really exciting. So I'm looking at some of these things on the exciting side of it. I'm also looking at the efficiency, the player efficiency rating, the PER, the PER, as I like to call it. Not surprisingly, Bogdanovich is kind of high on that. Saddiq Bey kind of shocked me at his player efficiency rating, and I'm a big proponent of this stat. So just looking at things, Joseph is higher. That makes sense. Duren is higher. Guys that are shockingly low, Isaiah Stewart. And I wouldn't say that's like shockingly low, but I just thought he played better to warrant a better efficiency rating. Cunningham, Ivy, not as high as you'd like them to be, but not everything's perfect. So overall, the recap of the offense is that the offense is better. Turnovers are down. I think if we look at turnovers as a team, we're averaging 13.3. That's better than last year, I do believe. And honestly, if that is something that we can maintain, 13.3 turnovers is pretty darn good. We're actually averaging less turnovers than our opponents. So that is a good thing. The problem is we're still losing. So let's talk about the defensive side of things. We are struggling on the defensive side of things. And I think oh man, how do I want to put this? When you look at the defensive side of things, it is just really frustrating the amount of open shots and the amount of mismatches that are happening. And I think I start to get a little flustered and a little frustrated when everybody's switching everything. But I understand they interviewed and they had a really good talk with Marvin Bagley before the season about this, before he hurt his knee. And he was talking about, yeah, but if on the back end we're talking the way that we're supposed to be talking, then there might be a switch that gets, let's say, Cade Cunningham on a 5, but then not Livers, but then Bagley can kick him out of there under the key and be like, switch with me. Here's the problem with that second switch. The communication isn't there. So what we end up having is guys that are in the key, and there are just players getting wide open 3-point shots. That's what kills you in the NBA today. Might have been able to get away with it in the mid 90s, but not today. Wide open threes kiss the game goodnight because teams are good enough. Indiana started ice cold, 0 for 12 from 3. And I was just like, well, law of statistics, like eventually it's going to come back up. They hit their next 4 in a row and they were rolling because they got confidence, and all of a sudden they come storming back and they never look back and they take the lead. This was not an extremely impressive team, the Indiana Pacers. They're a team that were tanking, that is also tanking, so-called. I mean, nobody's tanking yet at this point in the season, but they're a roster that looks like it's built to tank. And you just saw them have better shooting / more open players. So I think our offense is doing well. I think we're doing a good job of scoring, obviously at 111 a game, but our defense is just a leaky faucet right now. And I think more than anything, it's a combination of two things. It's a combination of what I believe to be a bad scheme. I think you are asking them to do too much. I think it is easier, this is my personal opinion, to defend a pick and roll and have a communication between two players of switch or stay than it is to automatically switch at the top. And then you need your second level of defense to be communicating based on what they're seeing there while they're trying to guard their own person and play help defense. I think that's more confusing. So I think what I would prefer to see is, I understand the switch everything because you have Duren. By the way, that dude can move his feet too. You have Isaiah Stewart. You have these bigs who can move their feet, that can stay in front of wings and even guards. That's great. It sounds fantastic on paper. The problem is Killian Hayes, Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, even when you get to a little bit bigger of guys, Bogdanovich, Diallo, these guys cannot guard 5s in the post. It can't happen. It just can't happen. And with Indiana, you saw their bigs dominate. They don't have great bigs. Isaiah Jackson, what is it? What's the guy? Jalen Smith, I believe, right? They got him from Phoenix. Like, not a great player, but they went off. And then whatever the other guy's name is that went for like 14 points, 15 rebounds. I don't remember because I'm like, who is that? Batadze. That's what it is. All right. Like, what are we doing? Like, it's very obvious what the reason for that is. And I understand like this idea of, okay, we're going to stop the 3-point shot. We'll live with big men posting us up because that's not how teams make a living in the NBA today. I get that. That's not how teams make a living in the NBA today. But here's the problem that you run into right now. Not only can we not guard them in the post because our communication is poor and we're getting a lot of bad matchups, but we're also allowing the open 3. So I understand the switch defense to be more perimeter oriented. The issue is we're struggling in both facets. And I think that's just attributed to, you have a really young team. So what is the simplest defensive scheme you can run that they can get to know? You have players that are multifaceted in defense, so let them be that. I don't think we have, and I think the issue here too is when you look at our starting lineup, there's not one player in that starting lineup that is a defensive force. There just isn't. There's not. I think when you bring Jalen Duren in, you're starting to realize he will be, but he's a rookie and defense comes along last. Okay, I promised that I would talk about more, so I got to move on to the next thing, and that is talking simply about what to expect over the next 10 games over the first half of the season and over the whole season. I think it's safe to say that over the next 7 to 10 games, you can expect a lot of losses. We have a West Coast trip. You can expect to give up a lot of points, tons and tons of points. I think you're going to see Cade Cunningham continue to shoot better and better because he struggled with his shot a little bit so far. But the team in general, I think you can expect to pile up a lot of losses. I wouldn't be surprised with a 2-8 start. I know that sounds bad. Maybe even 1-9. Like, I'm not seeing a lot of victories on the schedule here, but 3-7, 4-6, those would be wins to start with. For the first half of the season, you're looking for a team that's slowly getting better defensively, and you're hoping that the offense continues to play the way they are. You hope that Ivy continues to play the way that he is, averaging 17.7 points, that Cade continues to get other teammates involved, but gets a little more aggressive himself. This is a guard-centric lineup, the way we're playing this. The ball is in those two players' hands a lot. I would expect the team to get better over the first half, and then I would expect us to start getting some wins in the second half of the season. It's a young team. And I know it's frustrating because you're like, oh, it's year 3 of the rebuild. This team is younger than it was in year 1 of the rebuild, I'm pretty sure. So sorry, the restore, right? So it's younger than it was in year 1. So you're going to have this trend. And I know it gets frustrating as a fan where you get so far behind in the standings that when you start winning, you're like, who cares? I almost don't want you to win because I want a better pick. I would expect us to absolutely be in the lottery this year. It was really exciting to see us play against the Magic, who've had a couple of other really good games against good teams, all losses. But so they're 0-3. But like, it was fun to see us against the Magic. It was really frustrating against the Knicks, and it was fun and frustrating against the Pacers. Expect a lot of frustration, but really key in and focus also on the excitement that we can have with these young players. Are they developing? Watch them on defense. When the team goes on defense, maybe take each quarter, watch a player. Watch Jaden Ivey for a quarter. See what he's doing on defense. Watch Jalen Duren. That's going to be a little bit more fun. But you'll see as rookies and as young players, there's going to be confusion. And there's going to be like, what is he doing there? The problem is we're so trained as just fans to watch the ball. We just watch the ball. So we're watching the other team play offense. We're watching us play offense. That's usually what the normal fan does. So when you watch individual players and you watch the team play defense, all of a sudden you'll start to say, I see exactly what he's talking about with the missed assignments, the missed rotations, the open threes, people turning their head, looking lost. It's been happening. And so that's the frustrating part. All we see if we're watching the other team's offense is, why is that guy wide open? Like, they're not running anything crazy on offense. Why is he wide open? So that's kind of what my expectation is for the Pistons. Doesn't mean they won't be fun to watch. Keep watching our videos because we're going to keep talking about the development of players. We have a lot. We have a lot to talk about with the Pistons this year. It's a young, fun team, and there's going to be games where we're just thrilled after watching because it all comes together and it gels and we get a W. There's going to be other games where it almost feels unwatchable. New York Knicks. All right. We'll see you on the next one, everybody. Thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button below if you haven't already subscribed, and we'll see you on the next video.